Majesty of our sentiment, Otumfuo Tutu II. Nananum, the Chairman of Council, the Chancellor of the University, the Vice Chancellor of the University, business leaders gathered, the Inspector General of Police, all other distinguished protocols. Today is a historic day, but the UPSA prides itself as a leader in matters of business in Ghana. And today the UPSA is leading a conversation of business, having gathered business leaders. And we are honored that we have in the chair the foremost eminent citizen of Ghana, especially traditionally speaking, His Majesty Otumfuo Tutu II. As the most eminent, arguably the most eminent alumnus of this university, we're deeply honored to have you today in the seat, Otumfuo. Many would not know, I have a special connection to Kumasi, and for that matter, Your Majesty. I haven't started work in Kumasi, and many would not know. But actually, it's Mencia that liberalized legal education in Ghana. The very first law school, please give it up. The very first law school that dared to be established outside of Accra was established in KNUST, and it was an open secret that it was at the influence of His Majesty. And so therefore he was my first employer. I'm honored for that thanks. Today we are honored to have him here, and he's going to speak to us on matters affecting business in Ghana, matters affecting investments, among others. And we are going to conduct this within the context of traditional protocol. And so therefore, there will be no such standard attachments as we have with regular lectures, among others. And without much ado, and with the greatest humility, may I respectfully call on His Majesty Otumfuo Osei Tutu II to present his speech. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I was connected by Kandapa, who was my junior in the school, at the golf course, when I had already received my invitation to come and give a public lecture at my school. When he said to me, Majesty, you'll be requested to speak to the business sector. I said, the invitation is for me to give a public lecture. He said, yes, but this one, just go and talk to them small about businesses here.
Sure.
So I left it as it was till when I arrived. Then 2 days ago, I was told that I have to come. It is rather a symposium, and that would be questions and answers. And then my people said, no one asks you a question, so you can go. But we wouldn't allow anyone for you to sit there for them to ask you any question at all. And I said, but I have to go, so we need to find a solution. The solution was okay. The questions were brought to me, and I had to then prepare my answers. So we decided now for you to listen to me and what I respond to the questions that were sent to me.
Sure.
Okay. And they also said I can sit down, and I said no, I want to stand and then speak to my people here in relation to the business. Because they make the money for us.
Sure.
Even though most of the money doesn't come to me. I bring you warm greetings from Asia, and I'm pleased to join you at this important symposium of my school here in Accra to reflect on the theme, mediation and ethical governance for business sustainability.
Sure.
This theme is not only academic, it is deeply practical. It speaks to the future of Ghana, the future of African enterprise, and the future of leadership itself.
Sure.
Asks us to examine how we resolve disputes, govern institutions, pursue wealth, and ensure that posterity does not destroy the very society that makes it possible.
Sure.
Long before modern courts, commercial arbitration, corporate boards, and written institutions, African societies have developed careful systems of resolving conflict. In our traditional communities, disputes were not treated simply as legal quarrels between two individuals. They were seen as disturbances to the community's moral and social order. The aim of mediation was therefore not merely to decide who had won and who had lost, but to restore harmony, persevere dignity, heal relationships, and secure the future.
Sure.
In many African traditions, mediation is rooted in listening. The chief does not sit alone as an isolated authority. He sits with elders, queen mothers, neighbors, family heads, and other custodians of memory and custody. Each party is heard. The facts are examined. The interests of the family, the community, and future generations are considered. Even where guilt is established, the goal is often not humiliation, but correction, restoration, and peaceful coexistence. This traditional model remains highly relevant in the modern corporate and commercial environment. Business is not merely about contracts and profits. It is about relationships. It is about trust when investors and governments, employers and workers, companies and community shareholders and banks and boards, banks and customers and suppliers and buyers who all come together to make business work.
Sure.
When those relationships break down, litigation alone cannot always repair them. A court may pronounce judgment, but that does not always restore trust. A company may win a legal case and still lose its social license to operate. A community may lose in court and still resist a project. A worker may lose a labor dispute and remain resentful. Mediation, therefore, offers businesses a wisdom that law alone cannot provide. Ghana has already recognized the value of alternative dispute resolution through the Alternative Dispute Resolution Act 2010, which provides for arbitration, mediation, and customary arbitration. This is significant because it shows that mediation is not an outdated traditional practice. It is part of modern justice and modern commercial governance. Business naturally pursue profit. There's nothing wrong with that. A business that does not make profit cannot survive, cannot employ, cannot pay taxes, cannot innovate, and cannot support society. Profit is necessary, but profit is not enough. Profit without integrity becomes exploitation. Growth without fairness becomes oppression. Efficiency without conscience becomes cruelty. Wealth without responsibility becomes danger. The responsible corporate leader must therefore balance profitability with integrity, fairness and social responsibility. This balance is not achieved by speeches alone. It is achieved through systems, values, and daily decisions. It is achieved when procurement is transparent, workers are paid fairly, taxes are honestly declared, customers are not deceived, communities are consulted, and environmental obligations are respected. A company must ask itself not only whether an action is legal, but whether it is just. It must ask not only whether a project is profitable, but whether it is sustainable. It must ask not only whether shareholders are satisfied, but whether workers, customers, host communities, and future generations have been treated with respect. Across the world, many companies have learned the hard way that ethical failure can destroy commercial success. Enron collapsed not because it lacked talent, but because cleverness replaced truth. Volkswagen suffered global reputational damage because technical excellence was undermined by deception. Financial institutions have failed when greed overcame prudence. These global examples remind us that ethics is not a decoration placed upon business after success has been achieved. Ethics is the foundation upon which lasting success is built. In my own experience as a Santo, much of what people call adjudicatory success has been due to mediation. Leadership is not always about commanding very often. Leadership is about patiently listening to pain, grievance, anger, pride, misunderstanding, and fear, and then guiding parties toward a solution that protects the truth and preserves the relationship. Traditional mediation offers principles that business can adapt in resolving commercial disputes. The first is patience. Many disputes worsen because leaders rush to judgment before understanding the root of the matter. The second is neutrality. A mediator must not enter the process as a hidden ally of one side. The third is respect for dignity. Even the person at fault must not be treated as though he has ceased to be human. The fourth is restoration. The purpose of dispute resolution must not only be punishment, but the rebuilding of trust. The fifth is community consciousness. A dispute between two parties often affects many others who are not seated at the table. These principles are useful in modern business disputes when shareholders disagree, when workers protest, when host communities resume mining operations, when contractors and clients fall apart, when investors and public agencies clash. The question should not be only who is right under the contract. The deeper question should be, how do we resolve this matter in a way that protects justice, preserves relationships, and allows society to move forward? Mediation helps businesses preserve relationships because it recognizes that today's opponent may be tomorrow's partner. Litigation often produces a winner and a loser. Mediation seeks a solution that both parties can live with. This does not mean mediation ignores wrongdoing. It does not mean truth is sacrificed for peace. Rather, it means truth is pursued in a manner that allows the future to remain possible.
Sure.
In business, this is very important. A mining company cannot simply defeat a community in court and expect peace. An employer cannot defeat workers legally and expect loyalty. A government cannot defeat an investor procedurally and expect future confidence. A bank cannot humiliate its customers and expect trust. In all these situations, the law may settle the trial, but mediation can settle the relationship.
Sure.
In our traditional system, after a dispute is resolved, attention is given to how people will live together afterwards. This is a lesson modern business must learn.
Sure.
The end of a dispute should not be the beginning of permanent bitterness. It should be the beginning of renewed responsibility.
Sure.
Do businesses in Ghana rely too heavily on litigation rather than dialogue and negotiated settlements? That's a question. In many cases, yes. The court system remains essential to justice and the rule of law. And there will always be disputes that require judicial determination. Yet, excessive dependence on litigation can be costly, slow, adversarial, and destructive of commercial relationships. In Ghana, many business disputes could be resolved earlier if parties develop confidence in dialogue. Many labor disputes could be prevented if management listened to workers before they became angry. Many community disputes could be avoided if companies consulted with the community before entering the land.
Sure.
Many investment disputes could be settled if public institutions acted transparently and communicated honestly.
Sure.
An business environment must therefore develop a stronger culture of commercial mediation. Contracts should include mediation clauses. Boards should treat early dispute resolution as part of risk management. Law firms should advise clients not only on how to win cases, but on how to persevere value.
Sure.
Universities should train students in negotiations, ethics, and conflict resolution. Professional bodies should develop credible panels of mediators. When mediation becomes respected, business becomes more stable.
Sure.
Traditional authorities and respected neutral institutions can play a significant role in resolving investment and commercial disputes. In Ghana, land is not merely an economic asset. Land is memory. Land is ancestry. Land is livelihood. Land is identity. Land is spirituality. When business enter communities without understanding this, they create tension even before operations begin. Traditional authorities can help companies understand local realities. They can convene parties, calm emotions, clarify customary rights, and ensure that community concerns are not ignored.
Sure.
They can also help communities appreciate the legitimate requirements of investments. However, traditional authorities must themselves act ethically. Chiefs must not become silent partners in injustice. We must not sell the future of our people for personal benefit.
Sure.
We must not allow students to become sources of conflict,
Sure.
dispossession, or environmental destruction. Neutral institutions such as universities, chambers of commerce, professional associations, religious bodies, and ADR centers can also provide trusted platforms for mediation.
Sure.
With this university, with this commitment to development, community engagement, and practical knowledge, is well placed to contribute to this national agenda.
Sure.
In periods of economic uncertainty, labor tension, or stakeholder disagreement, leadership becomes truly tested. It is easy to lead when conditions are comfortable. It is when resources are scarce, tempers are high, and and trust is low that the true quality of leadership is revealed.
Jump.
The leader must be calm because panic is contagious. The leader must be honest because people may endure hardship by resent deception. The leader must be fair because sacrifice demanded only from the weak becomes oppression.
Jump.
The leader must be courageous because difficult decisions cannot be postponed forever. The leader must be humble because no leader knows everything. The
Jump.
leader must be visionary because short-term survival must not destroy long-term stability. This applies to business as much as to government and traditional leadership. A corporate leader who hides information during a crisis destroys confidence. A leader who blames others without accepting responsibility weakens morale.
Jump.
A leader who listens only to praise becomes dangerous. Stability comes when people believe that leadership is truthful,
Jump.
fair, and competent. Ethical leadership in business governance means using power responsibly. It means recognizing that corporate authority is a trust, not a private possession. The board of directors, the chief executive, the senior management team, and all those who control resources must understand that they are stewards. Ethical governance requires accountability, transparency, fairness, responsibility, and discipline. The Securities and Exchange Commission of Ghana's Corporate Governance Code for listed companies emphasizing governance principles for companies whose securities are admitted to trading on the Ghana Stock Exchange.
Jump.
Such frameworks remind us that governance is not merely about titles, meetings, and reports. It is about protecting institutions from abuse, incompetence, and moral decay.
Jump.
In ethical governance, the board does not sleep with management when management misbehaves. Auditors are not decorative. Procurement is not designed for friends and relatives. Internal controls are not bypassed to please powerful people. Conflicts of interest are declared. Environmental risks are taken seriously. Workers are treated as human beings, not disposable instruments of production.
Jump.
Ethical leadership is what a leader does when there's an opportunity to do wrong and get away with it. It is what a leader chooses when nobody is watching. It is the quiet discipline that prevents public scandal. The greatest ethical threats facing Ghanaian business today include corruption, political patronage, weak internal controls, nepotism, tax evasion, false reporting, abuse of procurement systems, environmental destruction, poor labor practices, and the temptation to pursue quick profit without long-term responsibility.
Jump.
But perhaps the greatest strength is moral silence. Many people know what is wrong, but remain silent because they fear losing contracts, promotions, political favor, social acceptance. A nation does not decline only because bad people act. It also declines because good people calculate the cost of speaking and choose silence.
Jump.
This is why universities are so important. The purpose of education is not only to produce people who can earn salary, it is to produce people who can think clearly, act responsibly, and defend the public good. Ghana does not need clever thieves. Ghana does not need educated destroyers. Ghana needs competent men and women of conscience. Corruption and weak governance structures continue to affect investor confidence in Ghana. Investors may accept normal business risk, but they do not really accept uncertainty stemming from corruption, hidden costs, arbitrary decisions, and institutional weaknesses. When rules exist on paper but are changed in private offices, investor confidence suffers. When contracts are not respected, when payments require unofficial payments, and when public officials exercise discretion without accountability, development is delayed.
Jump.
Practical steps are needed. Ghana must strengthen institutions, enforce procurement rules, protect whistleblowers, digitize public services to reduce human discretion, punish wrongdoing regardless of status. Businesses must also clean their own houses. It is not enough for companies to complain about corruption while participating in it. Ethical reform must involve both the public and private sectors. Strong corporate governance is therefore not a foreign imposition. It is a national necessity. It protects investors, workers, customers, communities, and the state. Transparency is one of the most important pillars of ethical leadership. Where there is secrecy, suspicion grows. Where there is openness, trust becomes possible. In business, transparency means accurate accounts, honest reporting, clear procurement processes, responsible communication with stakeholders, and a willingness to explain decisions. Transparency does not mean that every confidential matter must be exposed. Some matters require discretion, but confidentiality must not become a hiding place for wrongdoing. A leader who fears transparency often has something to hide. A company that resists accountability should not be surprised when communities and investors distrust it.
Yo.
Traditional governance also has lessons here. The chief often sits in public, the elders are present, the linguist speaks, the community observes. Symbolically, authority is visible and accountable to history, custom, and public expectation. Modern corporate boards can learn from this. Governance must not be hidden behind complex language and closed doors. Those affected by decisions deserve clarity.
Yo.
There's an orthodox view, sometimes inaccurate, that traditional governance is simply autocratic. This view does not fully understand the depth of African governance systems. A true chief does not govern alone. He is surrounded by elders, queen mothers, two fathers, clan heirs, priests, linguists, and community representatives. He is bound by oath, custom, priesthood, and the welfare of the people. His authority is real, but it is not unlimited. His dignity is high, but it is tied to responsibility. In Asante, the institution is greater than the individual. The golden stool is not the personal property of any ruler. It represents the soul and unity of the people. This principle is powerful, relevant for corporate government. The company is greater than the chief executive. The institution is greater than the board chair. The long-term interests of the business outweigh the short-term appetite of any individual.
Yo.
Modern corporate boards can learn from traditional systems of accountability. They can learn consultation. They can learn collective responsibility. They can learn respect for institutional memory. They can learn that leadership without accountability becomes arrogance.
Yo.
And authority without restraint becomes abuse. Today, almost every business speaks about sustainability. Annual reports are filled with beautiful words about environmental responsibility, social impact, governance, and community development. Yet, as the language of sustainability grows louder, rivers are being polluted, forests are being destroyed, farmland is being degraded, and communities are being left in poverty.
Yo.
This contradiction should concern every serious leader. Sustainability cannot be a slogan. It cannot be a public relations exercise. It cannot be reduced to donations, branded t-shirts, and ceremonial visits. Sustainability must be built into the business model itself.
Yo.
Ghana's struggle with illegal mining, popularly known as galamsey, is a painful example of economic activity divorced from ethical responsibility. Recent reports continue to show the destructive effects of illegal mining on rivers, farmland, forests, cocoa growing areas, and public health. Reports have also indicated that Ghana has taken steps such as banning mining in forest reserves to curb environmental damage. A reminder that the environmental protection must be backed by law, enforcement, and national discipline.
Yo.
A river does not vote, but it gives life. A forest does not sit in parliament, but it protects generations. Soil does not speak English, but it feeds the nation. If businesses destroy these foundations of life, they destroy the future.
Jump.
Asante and many parts of Ghana are blessed with minerals, land, water, forests, and hardworking people. Yet we must be honest enough to say that many resource-rich communities remain poor. This is one of the greatest moral contradictions of development. Communities sit on gold, but their schools are weak.
Jump.
They live near mines, but their roads are poor. The lands produce well, but their youth remain unemployed. Their rivers carry the burden, and others carry the profit. Companies must ensure that communities within which they operate genuinely benefit from their presence. This requires more than corporate social responsibility as charity. It requires justice. It requires local employment, skills training, fair compensation, local procurement infrastructure, environmental restoration, transparent community development agreements, and continuous dialogue.
Jump.
The global standard is also moving in this direction. The United Nations Guiding Principles of Business and Human Rights emphasizes that businesses have a responsibility to respect human rights and to address adverse impacts associated with the operations.
Jump.
This means companies cannot claim success if their success is built on community suffering. A company that takes gold from the land must not leave poverty in the home. A company that extracts minerals must also invest in human dignity. A company that benefits from community resources must help build community futures. There are local and global examples from which we can learn. In Ghana, the best traditional mediation system reminds us that dialogue, patience, and respect can resolve disputes that formal processes alone may not settle. In many communities, chiefs and elders continue to prevent conflict, settle land matters, reconcile families, and maintain social order. This is not primitive governance, it's social intelligence. Globally, we see different lessons. Japan teaches long-term thinking and the value of reputation. Germany's model of worker participation in corporate governance reminds us that employees are not merely labor input but stakeholders in the enterprise. South Africa's reports of accountability and stakeholder responsibility. Corporate have influenced thinking on ethical leadership, sustainability, and stakeholder responsibility. Scandinavian countries show that trust, transparency, and strong institutions can support competitiveness. These examples prove that business sustainability is not achieved by profit alone, but by trust, discipline, and social responsibility. But Ghana must not simply copy. We must adapt global best practices to our own values. African governance has deep resources, communal responsibility, respect for elders, restorative justice, reverence for land, and accountability to future generations. The past before us is to modernize without losing our moral roots. If you were to ask me what keeps me awake at night about Ghana, I would say that it is not because Ghana lacks intelligence. We have brilliant people. It's not because Ghana lacks resources. We have gold, cocoa, oil, timber, land, water, culture, and human talent. It is not because Ghana lacks history. We come from civilizations of dignity, courage, and wisdom. What worries me is the gap between our potential and our discipline. I worry when young people lose faith in the country. I worry when rivers are destroyed for quick money. I worry when politics becomes so divisive that national interest is forgotten. I worry when education produces certificates without character. I worry when communities rich in resources remain poor in opportunity. I worry when leaders think more about the next election than the next generation. But I also have hope. I have hope because Ghana has survived many storms. I have hope because our youth are energetic and creative. I have hope because our traditions still carry wisdom. I have hope because universities like mine continue to shape minds for national development. I have hope because the conversation we are having today shows that we still care about the moral direction of our society. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, mediation teaches us that conflict need not destroy relationships. Ethical governance teaches us that power must serve truth. Sustainability teaches us that today must not steal from tomorrow. These three ideas belong together. A business that cannot resolve conflict peacefully will eventually weaken. A business that cannot govern itself ethically will eventually lose trust. A business that cannot protect society and the environment will eventually destroy its own foundation. Let Ghanaian businesses become known not only for profit, but for principle. Let our boardrooms learn from the best of our policies. Let our contracts respect our communities. Let our investors honor the land. Let our leaders remember that authority is a trust. Let our students become a generation whose success does not shame their conscience. Wealth without wisdom is danger. Power without accountability is tyranny. Development without morality is destruction. But where mediation, ethical governance, and sustainability meet, there we shall find peace, prosperity, and a future worthy of our children. This university, God bless our students, may God bless Ghana. Thank you very
It is the authority of His Majesty to speak to us, and it is our role to listen. I have the mandate of the Vice Chancellor and the leadership of the university, and by their invitation, the mandates of the leaders of business were gathered here to inform you, Your Majesty, that we have listened to your words of advice and instruction. And for those of us in academia, we've been advised that we don't need educators who are destructive. And for those in business, there's space between discipline and our potential. I think a lot has been said, and once again, thank you, Your Majesty. Respectfully, Your Presence, I would like to acknowledge a few dignitaries. So we know a few Bank of Ghana. We have Mr. Tutu Dada, the GT Bank Managing Director. Mr. Pauline Nakwa, who is the CIMAC Ghana Country Director. Mr. Foucault Che, CEO of Glyco, the Glyco Group. Ms. Linda Amofa, Ms. Linda Amofa-Jiman, CEO of Innovates Advertising Limited. We also have in our midst CEO, Mr. Mukesh Takwani. We have Mr. Jenny Boateng James, Ghana Brazil Chamber of Commerce. And then Socrates Afram, finally.
Of our own very former Vice Chancellor, Prof. Joshua Alabi. We also have in our list the IGP, Sir Yohono. You are very welcome. Our first and immediate former Chancellor, His Excellency Royal Majesty Nenedrolo. That was the first. We also have the immediate former National Security Minister, Honorable Kandapa. We also have in our midst the immediate former chair of you. I can see sitting tall in our midst Professor Charles Bano, the immediate has OVC. I'm still scanning. We have our deans and directors here with us. We have the former registrar, my own boss, Prof. Koyo, and him right.
And may I ask the
Ah.